Alright, now let's go over to tints. Alright, so occasionally we have something where if I hide this layer, this was not quite the color that I wanted. This company has a color that's their corporate color, and they wanted this element, these clouds, which came in as just this kind of darker grayer color. They wanted it to be just a slightly modified to this blue color. So this is done by just simply placing a color over the top. If I take this same thing and I drag it up, I'm going to drag it over the top of other elements so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. So now everything is tinted by this one element. That is, let me come to my effect controls. So I keep effect controls up constantly because I'm constantly manipulating each of the frames. But in the effect controls, you will find that one of the standard aspects is opacity and blend mode. These two working together. So all I have is a dark blue shape. It's just a rectangular shape that I put over the top of my stuff, but I made its blend mode color, which just takes that color and applies it wholesale to anything that's underneath of it. If I drag this same thing down, let's just say that I'm going to take, oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's take these two here and drag them on top and drag this down. Then it would impact what was under. Oh, let's drag it under this one. And then let's put this back. All right, so in this case, it will, I'm going to delete a couple of these. It's going to, you'll see the color shift right there, right? Which we can make that more gradual. I'll show you in just a moment how we make transitions or make elements fade in or fade out gradually. But you'll see it as I play here, that it will switch color over to that color mode. And if I drag this element above my pictures here, you'll see that part of the time it's in that unicolor, that single color, and part of the time it's in full color. So this is one way that you can color elements, just specific elements or everything, by using the tint modes. And you would add a shape by clicking on the shape element here. So one of the things that I want to show you right now is I needed darkness behind my text here, but I didn't want it to be a single, and this is something that if you're making your own videos and you have your own captions, you may want to do regularly. I just needed it darker, but I only needed it darker in the bottom fifth of the video here where the text itself was. I didn't want it to cover the entire screen, and I definitely didn't want to darken the primary area here. So in order to achieve this, I do a couple of things. So this is this graphic right here, and my graphic is just simply a dark graphic. I can choose whatever color I want. See if I make it red, now it's red. And then I've applied a multiply blend mode. I can choose other blend modes as well. I have color burn, I have darker color. You can see that it does different things depending on what blend mode that I choose. Photoshop is where I recommend learning blend modes, but then applying the same understanding here to Premiere Pro. All right, so in this case, I was doing multiply. Let me go back to multiply. And I wanted my color to be darker. So let's do something like this. Didn't need to be black. When I went black, it was too opaque. And it covered too much. So I brought it down into the gray zone, which makes it darker, but it still allows you to see through what you're looking at. So that's the first part. Now, if I were to clear my, okay, so I have here under shape. Oh, okay, I have a mask applied right here. You'll see that these settings are applied here. I'm going to kill this mask. So let's go ahead and clear it. So we're going to right click and clear this mask. So now you'll see that I just have a shape. just a whole shape there. Now, what I wanted is I wanted this gradation there. And so in order to create the gradation, I need to add a mask to the shape. And so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add a rectangular mask. Now, whatever's inside the mask you can see. Whatever's outside the mask you can't see. And you can see that it's only applied to this one element here. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to bring it down about to here. And I'm going to expand it by grabbing the points. So I'm going to expand it to the full size, the full width of my shape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down here, and then I'm going to blur the edge. And blurring the edge is one of this called mask feather. And you can see these dotted lines here show you how blurred it is. And click on the amount of blur that there is between this. The more blur you have, the less people are going to perceive that darkness behind the text. So I would kind of max that out in terms of your. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get back on our mask, and am I on the right element? Oh, I think it's this element above. Oh, there we are. It's this one. It is a good idea to name your elements so you don't. It gets confusing after a while. All right. So if I grab the right element here, I can really. You see how that feathering really softens. But if you go too far, then you can't see what's underneath of it. So getting it somewhere where it's still dark behind it, this is a great effect for when you have color down here, or when you have words down at the bottom. But it's not necessary. You can see that I kind of have it turned on, turned off. It's not necessary for it to be some of the places that don't have that kind of color. All right. With this text here, ES3 really does heart fide. They wanted to play with the heart. I brought in the heart, and then I added this little beating boom, 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 boom. That is simply done with our motion effects. I'm going to click on the heart itself. You can see that it's just a favicon text, emoji. I guess, yeah, it's an emoji. And anyway, I bring my heart as it is, and I come in here and I say for my vector motion, you can see here that I started a keyframe, and in this keyframe my scale was 0, so it was invisible. It was invisibly small. And then I bring it up to 100%. Right? So the heart started at 100%. I created the keyframe and then knocked it down to 0. It's always easiest to start where you want to be and then work backwards than it is to start where you can't see anything. All right, so in this case, I started here at 100%, and then I took my slider back right here, created another keyframe, and then knocked it down to 0 so that it starts off at nothing, right? And you can see here that between these two, it slides up into place. And then I have it go down to 90% and back up to 100%. And then a little gap, stays at 100%, and then it goes down to 90, up to 100, and then I just repeat that, right? I just copy that little three point combo, and then I'll place my slider here, paste. Place my slider here, paste. And then I'll copy all three of them, place my slider. So here, in fact, I'll just do it so you can kind of see how that works. I'll place my slider, copy, and then I'll come over here and paste. Place my slider here and paste, and then I'll grab all three. If I need to do this again and again and again, and it needs to be some kind of repetitive motion, you can, of course, just do it again and again and again like this, or you can create a little nested object that then will repeat again and again and again. Okay, so basically what this will look like now is it will come in, boom, 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 just kind of like you would expect a heart to do. So that's that element. Now, when it comes to logo intros like this, this one was already created in After Effects, but you can do it in Premiere Pro. You would want to have each of your items on a separate layer, and essentially you just time them so that the globe comes in, the second element slides to the left, the second element slides into from the right, and they fade to visual. So if I take this really, really slow, point by point, you'll see that each of my elements, so these start to fade in, and they're coming from the top, and once they reach their destination, the globe starts to come in, and it starts off dark, gets to full size, and then we change the color to be normal, and it's still turned to the side, and then I take the entire thing, nest it together, and turn it so that it's upright now. And then you see here that I've got a mask reveal of the E and the 3, so the E comes down, the 3 comes in, the S comes up from the bottom, and in the process, and because it's fast, you get this little sense of, you get a logo intro or outro that really can up the game on how professional your videos are looking. So I highly recommend that if you're getting into the video space and you're going to be branding yourself, that you develop for yourself a simple but consistent logo outro or intro that you can use either before or at the end of your videos in order to kind of give your signature to what you're doing. And this can be completely, so it doesn't have to be on the cloud background. It can work independent of it. And as an element, if you nest it together, which we talked about nesting last time, if you nest it, then it becomes an element in and of itself that you can then size and create you can move it around and do all sorts of things with it separate from the animation of building it. All right, so I think that this has a lot of the elements that I wanted to talk about with this one. Let me just see if there's anything else in here that I wanted to show for the sake of this. We may have talked about it last time, but let me just say that when we add text, I often will start off of my elements so that I can see exactly what I'm working on. I'll take my text tool and I'll click to begin typing. Here is where the text will go. All right, and then while I have it selected like this, it creates for me a text section of my effect controls. And if I open that up, this will allow me to change the font to whatever I want it to be. Maybe it's Montserrat, maybe it's Times. Why would we do that? Here we go, Medieval Times. There we are. So that we can make it whatever font we want. We can control the size. And if we use I forget the name of them right now, the key points here, keyframes, then we can start off. Now you notice I'll drag it in just a little bit because it's easier. We can start off by saying, oh, let's click on the source text. I want it to start off as medieval, right? But then I want it to evolve into Montserrat. Now let's go regular. Okay, so it's going to evolve into that. And then I want it to evolve into, let's do one more. Let's have this black. There we go. And then I want the size of this one. So let's go back here to the first. At the first, I want the size to be exactly where it's at. That doesn't look like it's going to allow me. Let's see if it'll allow me to change the size. It doesn't look like it's going to allow me to. We'll see if that's one of the characteristics that it allows me to shift through. Alright, so now when I hit play, it evolves to it just jumps to the different text options that I have created here, right? So that if we wanted to have the same message go in a number of different fonts, or we wanted to have different messages, we can play with it there. We can also change our position so that, you know, at the first we start where we're at, and we're going to do scale 2, and then as we move down we can, let's say we want to go over and we want to go down, we want to go a little bit bigger, and then by the third one we want to go down again and back to the left, and let's go back down small again. So in total it would go, while it's changing, it's moving as well. Now that's just simple. That's just to show you once again how the keyframes are working, but also how you can completely change the text and work with it so that it's what you want it to be throughout. Alright, I think that's all that I wanted to share from this specific video, so I'll go ahead and close that down. And file, close project. No, we don't need to save this. And then I'm going to bring up the grab it instructions. Now, on this one, I started with a bunch of still images. That's all I had to work with, but they wanted to provide instructions on each of the parts and how it worked. So one of the things that I did was I took a picture of my, let's see here. Okay, so first thing is, notice the sound effects. It's amazing, little elements like that actually add up. So if you can either create your own sound effects, or if you can utilize some that are on like Envato, or there's a number of places you can purchase your sound effects from. You can also get a whole bunch from Google and YouTube where people have just uploaded free sound effects that you can access. Anyway, so when I change shape here, you'll see here that down in the audio section here, I've added this little swoosh sound, so that when it comes up, it goes. Now that sound is actually shaking a tin or a plastic of screws, but it makes a little crunch sound, right? Which I wanted to screw. So sound effects don't actually have to be realistic for them to be effective. They need to invite you to suspend your disbelief. They need you to invite you into the story and to be related to the action that's happening. So in this case, if I take out the sound effects, then and I'm going to take off the music, then we still have what's visually happening, but it takes away some of the characteristics, some of the character that the visual elements have. Now, when you can see here that I time different things differently, so that, for example, the head of the drill comes down into place, it slides into place, and it's just one picture laid right over the top of another, right? And then I have the drill tip come in conjunction with the sound effect, which happens right there. Let's add our sound back now. So here we go. We're going to listen to the sound, and we're going to watch as the different elements come in. As my drill bit begins to go in, you'll notice that that's the point at which my instructions fade away, right? So they're all on different layers, and each of these will function in time. And this is where sometimes it makes sense to create for yourself a timeline of what's going to happen when and where and why, but the more you fiddle with it, the easier it will become. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to show this to you is to show you that sometimes visual effects are far easier than you would ever expect them to be. Alright, let's play this real quick. Alright, now I'm going to start the drill up, but it's going to look like it's spinning, but really, sound effect that is actually making you feel like it is spinning. Okay, it's kind of like when you go to an ice cream store and it smells like banana, but it's really just like if you were to plug your nose, it tastes like vanilla, but the banana smell makes you think that you're eating banana ice cream. Right? In a similar way, the sound effect here, all I've done is I've taken a version of my picture, so my drill head, and I've just blurred it. right? Because that's what would happen when you were spinning something. So I have an exact copy of my drill head, but I just blurred it so that all of the details are blurred together, just like that, on both the bit and the drill head. And then when I add in the sound effects of the drill, it feels like it's spinning, which is the whole point of it. And then now notice how the sound effects of the clicks and the grinding and going lower in pitch and higher in pitch, all of that helps with the storytelling of the pressure that's building into the drill. And then of course I flip the bit, latch on again, spin again. Now with my arrows here, this is something that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to go into a nested object here. For my arrows, I have this, it took a bit to do, and it was a little bit of manual work, but I have essentially one element here, or two elements here. You can see that they're stacked on top of one another. But with it, I have a mask that slowly reveals the arrow. And if I were to take it piece by piece, let me click on the element itself, and we're going to come into our mask. So this is, you can see here that the points of the mask on our keyframe are here, so that and my mask itself looks like, if I click on the mask, you can see here that it's just a bunch of drawn points, and that when I click to the next, I have it sliding over, and then I have it expanding. And actually when I built this, I drew the mask around my entire arrow, and then I programmed it backwards, so it went away, right? So essentially what I had was I drew my mask just around my arrow so I could see it, and then I went back one keyframe, see, and I moved in one point to just slide away the nose. And I did this because I wanted it to follow the shape of the arrow instead of just go one direction. If I wanted it to just go one direction, then I would have just done a slide of my box. So then on the next one, you can see here I moved in several of my points now in order to continue on with the disappearing of the arrow. And then I did the same thing in reverse for this one. Now you can see that when you work this slow, it's kind of choppy, but the eye doesn't pay attention to that, right? So in 4 steps, I have eliminated the complete arrow. In 8 steps, I've eliminated both arrows, right? And then when I play it, it does this little blinkety blink. You're turning this way. And then when I work with that in conjunction with my drill bit here, then it gives this effect of that my drill bit is actually turning. Now this is all done with still images, so there's no actual animation that's happening here yet. There's a little bit of sliding and movement, but there's nothing. There's not an actual drill. I'm not having to do this with video work. We can do other instructional and informational things all with the same elements. I can switch out the bit and do a different bit. I can switch out the drill head and do a different drill head, and we can feature different products in a very, very, very similar environment. So, all right, let's see here. See if there's anything else from this that I wanted to feature on. Okay, that's it. All right. So, essentially, what I wanted to talk about in this one was to show you how you can animate things and make them feel like they're motion and actually working when in fact they are not. Okay, so that is all that I wanted to move from this one. Let me see if there's anything from the sound effects that I needed to be aware of. Now you'll notice here that because of the audio, which is down here, I'm going to make it. Oops, I'm going to make it bigger right here. Oh, my bad. I can't seem to grab it. Let's being further away, that you can see that I can see the beat points at which this music is pulsing, right? And that's a really important detail to pay attention to when you're trying to time things visually. So you'll notice as I play this back for you that all of everything fading in or fading out, any type of element, text element or visual or otherwise, it does all of the movement and zipping and pulsing, and everything does so in conjunction with these beat points, these high points in the music. And so I look for these when I'm doing the audio, and after I've got all my visual elements in one place, before I run it all together and work out the timing, then I bring in my audio so that it's in sync with the audio that I've chosen for it. So once again here, we'll just go through and play, and you'll see how it goes to the beat. And you can see that over the course of the video, I mean, this takes some time to build, and that this timeline goes and goes and goes and goes, and essentially you can do an entire movie. You can do a whole feature film in this way. Of course, it would take an enormous amount of time and energy and effort and whatnot, but you can see how you can take different elements and you can stack them up together and work on them. And for example, every time you see a green section like this, this is a nested object that I've just built as a separate element. And all this is it's my spinning drill. So in this case, there's no sound or anything like that. You'll see here that all I have is the one, and then I have the other, this layer and this layer, laid over the top. They're my blurry ones. If I were to hide the bottom two, you will see that all these are blurry versions of the head and the drill bit. And I work out all the details of this little segment here just in this nested object. And then once I've got it the way that I want it, then I will be able to nest those together in such a way that I can move them, and moving it up like this would be substantially harder if it wasn't considered one single object. So nesting them together allows you to consider it a single object and work with it from that point forward. Alright, we're going to take a quick break. This is the hour mark, so we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to show you the latest jib jab that we're working on it's a political one. It's going to be fun.